to come this far, and I have one final video in this series for you to watch. Before we get too far into things, I want to explain something. I do see XCOM as a metaphor for underground queer resistance groups that always seem to show up when the grip of fascism begins to tighten in one region or time period or another. Those who now find life impossible to live properly under these new conditions. Something, those who make peaceful revolution impossible, something. That is not to say that XCOM in its entirety is made up of LGBTQ+ operatives. That would be unfair to imply. There are plenty of operatives there who simply dislike alien rule and want to do something about that. You don't have to be gay in order to participate. Like my pal here, Fenris Skeekerton, an operative most handsome who has always been there for us, regardless of who said what or who implied which. He's always done the right thing and has been my friend for quite some time. I just feel more strongly about those operatives who are LGBTQ+, partly because I speak and see things through the lens of me. After being repressed for so long and told that there is something about us that is dirty, broken, and perverted, the mere act of acknowledging our true selves and living authentically is a powerful act of rebellion against the powers that be. The fact that in character customization, you can modify any operative at any time only further sweetens the deal. There are many within my community that if there was such an option to reshape their bodies, voices, and gender, and that was made available to them, they would immediately take it and be grateful and loyal to XCOM for no less than the rest of their lives. Many mistake misery for being what defines one as transgender. That is not the case. We are defined by our euphoria, the gender field, as it is commonly known. So the opportunity to go into a med bay, undergo a customization process, and then come back out to see our true faces staring at us in the mirror? There is absolutely nothing that Advent could offer us that would swear loyalty, and nothing that they could threaten us with that would scare us more than the fact that if they captured us, it is within their power to force us to revert back to what we once were. Being on HRT makes us biologically ineligible for the Avatar Project, and Advent can't be having that. In today's broadcast, I would like to explore more of the direct metaphorical comparisons in regards to gameplay mechanics to acts of queer resistance. Please do not take the actions of XCOM literally because they break, like, so many Geneva Conventions. Seriously, it's like Canada in there. Even in the Matrix, sometimes that wasn't metaphor, but rather just a cool fight scene. Like that whole thing with Morpheus in the dojo. Gosh, that was just so awesome. The Wachowski sisters are just incredible when it comes to making the coolest fluffing stuff that you've ever seen.
How did I beat you?
You're too fast.
Do you believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place? You think that's air you're breathing now?
Okay, yeah, bad example. That part is a metaphor. Morpheus is trying to teach Neo that gender rules are an antiquated concept brewed up by conservatives who have not had a proper poop since the time of Reagan. And by casting off what others think he should be, Neo can explore who he actually is. It's a very Templar point of view. Once again, the Matrix is inherently and irrevocably trans. The red pill is still estrogen. I could do a whole other video series on that, but crafting all of this took me most of September and all of October, and I'm definitely gonna die. But going back to XCOM operatives, I specifically run the Long War of the Chosen mod, which I highly recommend. But that also means that you're going to see more classes here than in the vanilla game. The first class that I'd like to get into are the Shinobi, those who lurk in the shadows and only show up to stick it to the man right where it hurts. As I mentioned in my last video, stealth, subtlety, and spy work come natural and easy to us. We're already dodging the likes of Mike Johnson and Josh Shriver on a your daily paces, both of whom could seriously use a hobby. Shinobi are primarily pathfinders, those who scat out to see what the enemy is doing and help to coordinate their squad, either to find a better angle for ambush or sneak past patrols entirely. Much like how Texas attempted to clamp down with book bans and free expression on the internet. Funny how operatives were ready and waiting right then and there with useful information on how to utilize VPNs, isn't it? A few people in the right place and their rule meaningless. Go ahead, clamp down on VPNs next if it makes you feel better. Shinobi have always found a way, and will always find a way. The bill in question, HB 4938, or the Anti-Corruption of Public Morals Act, seeks to ban adult content from the internet and tend to those pesky VPNs that allows one to get around their tyrannical rule.
Look, Janice, Denise, Tiffany, Amber, Thiessen. Let me go ahead and share a little something special with you that I like to call Perry's Perspective. 1. If someone's standing in front of me in line at the coffee shop and they can't decide what they want in the half hour it took to get to the register, I should be allowed to kill them. 2. I'm fairly sure if they took porn off the internet, there'd only be one website left, and it'd be called Bring Back the Porn. Bring Back the Porn. Bring Back the Porn. Bring Back the Porn.
Bring back the porn.
Coincidentally, it would also make practically any kind of gender representation or visibility also qualify as adult content and would be illegal as well. My broadcast speaking on this topic and my portrait icon would require YouTube to do some extremely fast thinking just to stay legal, which would likely result in them attempting to silence me. The maker of this bill is Josh Schreiber, a representative from Michigan as seen here. Yeah, that grin is just... Okay, yeah, that is so obviously just a thin man. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. I mean, he even looks like the speaker, come on. Someone needs to update the software for the simulation that we're all stuck in. They're just reusing assets at this point. This is also the same dude that wants to overturn Oberfeld versus Hodges, which is the Supreme Court ruling that constitutionally protects same-sex marriage in the United States. As I said before, this dude desperately needs to get a hobby. Go touch grass, or possibly smoke some, I don't know, he just needs to calm down. That's not to say at all that people should go and harass this guy. I mean, that's not what we're doing here. Besides, there's really no point. Representative Schreiber was sanctioned by the Michigan House of Representatives for, and I'm pulling a direct quote from the hearing here, a sustained campaign of racist rhetoric and hate speech, which he helpfully posted on social media. Yeah, the guy is about as white supremacist as you'd think that he would be. He doesn't have any staff, money, or even a position on committee. He's not a threat to us. He is a very loud moron making an awful lot of noise that Shinobi operatives have helpfully pointed out. He is a diligent little goblin, though, and as of July this year, proposed HB 4751, which aims to remove sexual orientation and gender identity or expression as protected categories under the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act, and that kind of thing would make it completely legal to say, fire me from my place of employment based on the sole criteria that I am transgender. Oh, legal discrimination. We should all be so lucky. I still don't see him as a threat. He has no resources. His only points of contact are his Republican buddies who are just as deluded as he is, and even they think that he's a joke. And this bill has an extremely low chance of passing because bills scaling back civil rights are about as popular as giving out free chrysalid larvae. The two thinks about gender and sexuality even more than I do, and I highly suggest a therapist. I mean, there's got to be something going on up in there. He also strikes me as the kind of person that says and does extremely dumb things on social media, and his browser history has to be the stuff of eldritch nightmares. So really, all a Shinobi operative has to do is sit in the shadows, waiting patiently, and simply report on the things that the good representative, who represents no one, says and does. It is as Admiral Thrawn once said, when your enemy is so set on the path towards their own self-destruction, The most effective tactic is sometimes just to watch. If authoritarian control is the iron grip, sneaky shinobi operatives are the ones pouring Vaseline on their fingers. If you're someone whose influence in the queer community is felt rather than seen, you might be a shinobi. You could also just be someone giving advice to a struggling soul or setting up a safe haven on Discord for a newly awakened individual to come and meet other trans folks. Shinobi live in the shadows, but that doesn't mean at all that they are dark. Next up, specialists. Holy mackerel, I have been looking forward to this. Gremlins and sparks are the metaphorical usage of AI in order to craft pro-queer messages and wage a shadow war of propaganda against the powers that be. This technology is indeed a double-edged sword. Advent uses their own mechs and drones as tools of tyranny and brutal oppression, but the same tech can also be tools of freedom and liberation. You can even hack hostile mechs and turn the enemy's strength back to your own advantage, which is just such an XCOM thing to do. Luli Shen down in engineering is someone particularly talented at doing this, representing the next generation of youth, queer, straight, or otherwise, looking ahead at new tech and drafting clever little survival strategies to get around Advent's control. If you use AI tools to craft pro-queer music, art, or perhaps even a voice changer to spread your message along Advent's airwaves to inspire others, you might be a specialist. Fascism always seeks control, but liberation thrives in self-expression. Like what the YouTuber Crimson the Fox has done with their own channel. Trans rights goes especially hard, and I highly recommend it. Now, classes like technicals, sharpshooters, grenadiers, and assaults. Yeah, there's precious little metaphor there. At the end of the day, XCOM is still just a game, and the aliens are still trying to kill you, champ. Take inspiration, but do maintain that separation of reality and fantasy. Especially since, once again, if XCOM really existed, super illegal. Like, so much. I do want to take a moment and touch on the officer class, though, which is an extra set of abilities that can be layered over a properly leveled operative. Someone who can inspire, allow you to survive things that you thought for sure would end you, and complete the mission. The metaphor that I would like to invoke here is that of the elder queer survivor. Someone who knows what Stonewall is like because they were there. Who lived through the AIDS crisis under Reagan. Who can tell you that, yeah, all of this is scary, but we have been through worse. I have always found Bradford to be especially inspiring in that regard because when Dr. Shen from the first game was killed by Advent and then Dr. Violet had to go off to Liberty only knows where to lose her mind completely, Central Officer Bradford has stuck by us. I consider his character my friend, and I am knitting him a new sweater for Christmas. These are just everyday operatives, though. The hero classes? A whole different ball of wax whose very existence is a metaphor on how queer resistance has always fought back. We've always existed, and always will. Reapers, skirmishers, and Templars. If Shinobi could be said to live in the shadows, Reapers have built a summer home there. In terms of gameplay, Reapers had built up their own resistance movement well before the Avenger ever came along and seemed to be doing all right for themselves. I see Reapers as representative of the underground queer groups that focus on survival, no matter what. Secretive, cautious, but deeply opposed to the powers that be. There are plenty of IRL groups that I could cite as precedent for this. Café to Menji in Amsterdam that acted as a gathering place for LGBTQ clientele and a haven for the resistance in World War II. The Mattachine Society, the Daughters of Bilitis, ACT UP, and so on. They aren't loud. They aren't out. They live by secrecy. They cannot lose if they cannot be found. In a world hunting them and seeking to erase them, they are our Reapers. Speaking of which, ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, is the group responsible for adding the pink triangle to our flag, or so I've heard. That was something that the Germans forced gay prisoners at concentration camps to wear. Again, taking the power of our enemy and twisting it back into a form of empowerment is just Such an XCOM thing to do. Then we come to skirmishers. In gameplay, they are defectors from Advent who seek to oppose the rule of the elders. In the metaphorical take that I'm spinning, they are those who have escaped indoctrination, controlling families, or have survived conversion camps, and seek to make sure that no one else ever has to live that way. They have felt the power of the machine that tried to break them, and now turn their knowledge of how it works back upon the apparatuses of power that seem to want to keep its gears turning. They are ex-Mormons, ex-evangelicals who once lived inside the system and are now exposing its inner workings. They are proof that, even from within the very heart of oppression, freedom finds a way. An excellent example of this archetype is McKrae Game, a formerly devout Southern Baptist and someone who was deeply enmeshed in conservative culture. He founded Hope for Wholeness in 1999, a rather large conversion therapy ministry in South Carolina, promoting the idea that same-sex attraction could be cured through prayer, counseling, and willpower. In 2017, he was abruptly fired by his own board of directors. Him coming out publicly as gay in 2019 might have had something to do with that. To put it in his own words, I was a religious zealot that hurt people. People said they attempted suicide because of me. People were in therapy because of me. Why would I want that to continue? Unquote. Which is better, to be born good or overcome one's evil nature? Everyone deserves a chance to make good on past wrongs. I was there once too. So, let's make the future a better one. We also have the Templars, quite possibly the most OP hero class in XCOM 2, forming psionic blades and bows from their minds, tanking hits that would reduce any other class to a Jackson Pollock painting, and leading every operation from the front. They are the radical spiritual queer community, drawing power from mystic ritual through their own version of faith and through pagan practice. They are the pastors of the Metropolitan Community Church, taking power originally claimed by the conservative right in empowering themselves and their identities, who preach that LGBTQ+ identity is not only compatible with faith, but something sacred and worth celebrating. They are the two-spirit shamans whose wisdoms and traditions colonizers tried to erase and failed, as they still persist to this day. They are every mystic who turned inward, found the truth in themselves, and came back all the brighter. The Templar's mental blade is the awakened soul, cutting through centuries of shame, and their shield, their fortitude, is unbreakable. They spread the message of, I am not broken. I am powerful, and I always was. There is nothing a tyrant can do, nothing they can threaten a Templar with that they would fear. To sum up, Reapers remind us that survival often means invisibility. They embody the resilience of those who have had to vanish to endure, to trick those seeking to erase us into believing that they had. The Skirmisher reminds us that indoctrination can be broken, that past sins can be amended. And Templars remind us that our deepest power comes from within, but your own identity can be a sacred source of strength. So even if a queer youth has parents that force them to cut their hair to not look like a girl, even if they believe they will never be able to obtain HRT, even if the machinery of the world is hell-bent on crushing them, the soul is forever beyond any tyrant's reach. As an aside, while I was doing research for this, I came across a group called the Radical Faeries, founded by Harry Hay, who blend pagan ritual, Native American tradition, and gave liberation into a mystical, community-centric way of life, and that sounds awesome and I want in. Technically still a Templar, but that is epic enough that it deserves its own mention. Now, before I close this whole project up, there is one last operative class that I would like to touch on. The Psi Operative. These guys have been utterly amazing since the 1994 version of the game, utterly shattering enemy cohesion and literally turning the minds and bodies of foes to XCOM's strength. XCOM 2 turns them into superheroes, placing enemies in stasis, blasting out literal Kamehamehas, and channeling fear and disorientation, or even briefly swaying enemies to the squad's side. Their most terrifying ability is called domination, which will permanently mind control an enemy to your side. It can only be done once per mission. I personally feel this should be called awakening, because it removes the brainwashing indoctrination from the target and forces them to see the truth of Advent, see their cruelty, their lies, and how little life means to them. A real-life example of this is my husband, who performed this ability on me. Several years ago, I was at a very bad place, spiritually, mentally, sometimes even physically. I touched on this in part 1. If propaganda and indoctrination weren't effective, they wouldn't do it. I wore the red hat, believed in the Great Replacement theory, listened to my father talk about how immigrants were ruining this country, and I just emptied my head of thought. I was especially convinced that I could remove the trans urges from my very soul. With prayer, obviously. Advent hacked me and had no intention of ever letting me go. It took a really long time with a lot of effort, but Sam helped me see the truth of my pain and what my home life was doing to me. He pulled me out of there and probably saved my life. He is Samuel Darkstorm, greatest hero of XCOM. And that wraps up my deep dive into the hidden metaphorical meanings and queer coding of XCOM 2. I hope that you all enjoyed my 4-part video series, and I hope that I put some hope and happiness in some hearts out there. Some among you might have had your own awakening along the way. Don't worry, that's normal. Before I close this project out and go back to my usual radio work, I want to leave you with a quote from a great man who is sadly no longer with us. No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free. I ask only one thing of you, Operative. Take what you have learned here today. Let the world know what is happening here. Wake them up. Broadcast the truth. Before there was no one left to listen. Well, it sounds like we're both out of time. Farewell, Operative. Don't worry about me, and don't you dare wait up. I survived the battle for Super Earth. These fascist losers aren't gonna take me down. I will see you again.